So I'm going to buckle up. I'm going to sit down. The reason is we have 10 proposals to go through. I'm going to go through number 10 down to number 4 pretty quickly. Give you what I think is good about them, quickly why I didn't choose them for the top 3, and then we'll spend most of our time on the top 3. Now, I decided not to strictly rank the bottom 7. And then there were some beyond that I'll talk about. We had 15 total. So there's 5 I'm not even going to mention on this show except by reference. I decided that trying to tell the difference between 8th and 9th wasn't very useful. So I grouped the 4 between 7 and 10 are a blob. The honorable mentions between 4 and 6 are a blob. And then 3rd, 2nd, and 1st place are individual. So when I show the first one, it is somewhere in 7 to 10, but I didn't bother to decide if it is 7th or 10th. Before I go into that, I will say, and we'll talk about some more in Discord and on our next show, this show will be mostly about what makes a good presentation and less about how we're going to design the mentor network. The next show, sometime next week, will be more about, okay, so what? So now what are we doing? How do we build the network given all this input? So we'll do that next. But I want to say the 5 I'm not going to go over. So places 11 through 15. I got something from each of your proposals. Nothing was wasted. Sometimes I got one idea. Sometimes I got confirmation of ideas in others. But every single person who submitted something has shaped what we're going to build. So with that, let me also observe, I said some of this on the channel. Some people sent in their work really early. I didn't look at it till the end. Some people waited to the last minute. I would say those people who did their homework early tended to also do better work. Not 100%, but as is true in homework in school, last minute rushing made it harder for some of those folks, but I appreciate what all of you sent in because it gave us some good data. So without further ado, sorry, I was running around the house to get ready for this. I'm going to bring up the first proposal. So this is somewhere in places 7 through 10. And this comes from our channel regular, Ryan, also known as Maximus. So as you'll see from a lot of the submissions in this bucket, I looked at 3 things. What was the quality of the ideas? What was the quality of the writing? Like, could I understand it? Was it complete thoughts or more notes? Was it an actual proposal? Was something being proposed? And then how did it look visually? Did it look professional? So a lot of proposals focused purely on giving me information. And so they're black and white flat text. This one was a Word document. I got a lot of PDFs. But you can see what Ryan covers here that I got out of it was, hey, here are some ideas. What do we need to be asking mentees to figure out what they need? What do we need to be asking mentors to figure out what they can do? And then how do we reward people? Like, how do we motivate mentors to keep contributing because they're volunteering their time? What do they get out of it? This was a common theme. I like this. Probably the idea I took away from this proposal was gamification. So this is the block of 7th to 10th place. So the biggest idea I got out of this was how do we gamify so that mentors get some acknowledgement, some reward beyond the intrinsic reward. And then there was several people mentioned this idea of we should do special events. And several people, something that will almost certainly show up in the final proposal, mentioned the idea of a credit system. So that we should have some way of saying, hey, those who do more have first dibs on getting more. Those who participate and who mentor others or who are active as mods or whatever. Hey, awesome. Thank you for the continuing sub. Good to have you here. And feel free to chime in and chat what you think of this proposal or anything you feel about the ideas I'm discussing. That will all be good feedback for me. I will keep an eye on it, and the mods are looking as well. What I like about this proposal when we talk about why did it make the top 10, it's pretty complete. It covers a lot of topics. It talks about measuring user satisfaction. It talks about different communication software or ways to handle communication. It had this idea of a credit system. But the big thing in here was the novel idea, relatively novel among the proposals, of a little bit about gamification, ways to incentivize mentors beyond the intrinsic rewards. I won't say it was completely unique, but that is what got Ryan into the top 10. So Bansura Gaming, you're right. We'll have to identify more ways to do that. Credit system might require a lot of work. It doesn't have to be complicated. Maybe. You can imagine if we have scheduling software, some people have suggested we use Calendly, I think it's called. If we have something where people can match up with their mentor, it could just log how many meetings happen. Now, yes, a dishonest pairing of a mentor and mentee could spam the system with fake meetings. I don't know. That kind of shit shows up, though. So, hey, 7th Fleet, thanks for the sub. All right, so bottom line is this would not be a good business proposal overall. It's not professional looking enough, and it's a little too bullety, not complete enough. But there's a bunch of stuff I'll take out of here. So I'll end up copying some of these questions when we consider how to orient mentors and mentees. And we'll end up thinking about gamification and about credit systems. Credits, coins, points, whatever. You'll see that in a lot of the proposals. All right. I'm going to flip back here. I'll probably end up forgetting to do this over time. But I'm going to kill that window and go to the next one. All right. Let's see if this shows up. Stand by. So the next person in the 7 to 10 bucket is Kai. Kai did well visually, so it's a little bit, for a business proposal, you probably wouldn't go white on black, but the point is this has some color, it's got some structure, it looks more like I'm presenting something I want you to do. It also has a clear theme. The journey, you don't have to go it alone. A close-knit community must be personal and central, which Kai then defines. So personal, the first step in forming any close-knit community. Central, I thought central was a bit of an unusual word choice, but the idea is the initial sense of investment, a single universal experience creates this sense of centrality in a community. This experience becomes a touchstone. And so Kai's proposal turns out to be essentially for game jams. Only think of them as mentorship jams. This idea, I'd love to see some feedback from chat. I'd love to see feedback from chat about the idea of periodic events. This proposal has a specific format along the game jam idea of a 48-hour mentoring gathering. Fighting Pickles, thank you for commenting that you like the stream. Gene Tannen, I think rewarding mentors is the wrong way of looking at it. Think of it as acknowledging mentors, giving them credit for what they're doing. I'm trying to figure out how to not pay mentors or reward them with anything of great financial value, but acknowledge their contribution. It's the same as a charity sending a thank you letter to donors. So this proposal has a very specific idea of some sort of mentorship scenario. So people team up, they get mentored through a scenario, they work on it, it gets reviewed, and I do a live review. And, you know, the idea is there's like prep time in the schedule, and then it happens over a weekend, and then there's review. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to go with this idea or anything like it, which is why it's not above the 7 to 10 bucket. But this pitch, this session is about what makes a good pitch. And if you just look at the visual presentation of this and the organization and the readability, whether or not I'm accepting the proposal is separate from whether or not it's a good, well-structured proposal. So for some of you who are interested in how do you pitch an idea, this is a pretty good pitch. It's got color, it's got some charting, it's got clear topic headings, it's got flows through time, calendars. It addresses questions like, how would we get started? What's the first jam? How would we scale and use community managers? How would we work on inclusivity? How would we do all of those things? So I think on the plus side, this proposal is visually and in terms of writing strong. Maybe on the minus side, it doesn't completely address what I ask for. So when I said, well, let's figure out how to build a mentor network, this is more focused on a specific idea of events. Now, you can squint and say, well, my idea for a network is to build the network through events. And I get that, but I think that's a little bit of a stretch. And so I would say like strong presentation, somewhat off topic, is how I ended up deciding this for me would land in the 7 to 10 bucket. But I think there's really good ideas in here. And I'm going to take a second to read chat because I do want to hear what you all have said about events. And I have added to the idea. I will say, I created a file for myself of all the ideas I'm taking away from these proposals. And the idea to run periodic events in the community, whether structured like this or structured a little differently, we're going to do. There'll probably be some events. So, all right. So, any other comments on this? I like the fact, by the way, it's always good if you can cite some research. So here it says, in a study by Bernadette von Dawens, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's going a little bit beyond your own thinking to say, hey, I've done some research on this. So, okay. Next up. I got to check my notes real quick. Nope. Yup. All right. All right. Next up, we have Eva. Twitch chat name, hi, it's Eva. So, mentorship and peer-to-peer support design contest. So Eva went with a PDF, but with graphics and some structure. So I would say this proposal falls between the first one we looked at and the second one in terms of visual beauty. And it's got pretty good writing. Where this one stands out is Eva focused on understanding the customers, the two main types of users for a system she calls Guru. And then focusing on the mentor and the mentee and their pain points and their user journey. And then created an actual storyboard. So there's a storyboard in this of, let's meet Leslie. I hopefully it's big enough for all of you to read. Let's meet Leslie. She's 20 years old. She spends a lot of time on her phone. It like takes through how is she going to use this Guru mentoring system. And then it has an actual user journey flow. So if you think about what to take away from this proposal, here's someone who put in the work to help us figure out like, how does a mentor actually find their way through the system? How does a mentee find their way through the system? It starts with the super beginning up here, like, are you a mentor or a mentee? And then takes you through that. So I think this proposal shines in terms of showing, one of the things I asked for is in the notes of the proposal contest, I said, tell me how it's really going to work. Don't just tell me how you want, what you wish the network was. Tell me how to do it, because we all have to do it together. And so this proposal shines in terms of putting together that structure. And, there's this list of questions. What's your race? What type of mentorship are you interested in? And she made some grayscale wireframes. So like, this is what it could look like. This gives you a sense you can see like, oh, and obviously she envisioned it as a simple phone app, which would be great. Would take some construction, but would be great. And then final thoughts she has here. I would love to define the requirements to some of the problems I discovered. This is super valuable. These lists of questions are things we're going to have to figure out as we go through the process of taking all this input and saying, okay, what kind of network are we going to design together? Can you link the document in chat? I thought about trying to do that. I'm not sure how scrubbed these documents are for release. I will probably post them in our Discord later. All right. So, in any case, this again was in the 7 to 10 position. Where this one shines, though, is in the depth of thought about the user journey. So now what you're seeing, if you look at several of the proposals we've looked at, the first one had some really innovative ideas on game design. The second one had the idea of events. The third one really gets into the nuts and bolts of how does the user flow work. And this is why I said there's going to have to be an exercise probably in our next show to draw off of all of these proposals, which I'll probably share in Discord, if not later today, this weekend. I'll make sure they're clean of details, and then I'll share them out there. The reason being, that way we can all look at them and try and compose the best overall design. But this one shines in terms of thinking about the user journey. Okay. So, sweet. Good work, everybody, so far. We have one more in the 7 to 10 bucket. I just have to pull it up. I have to find it. People use 3 names with me. They have their Discord name, their real name, and their Twitch name. Often none of them the same. So figuring out what maps to what is a little bit tricky. But there you go. All right, this one's going to impress in its own way as well. It's one of the most visually beautiful, so let's hit it. So this one is a proposal for something called Mentorship by Donham, who is part of our community. He unfortunately couldn't make the show today. I saw on Discord he can't watch this. So when you're watching the VOD, excellent job. Here's someone who is listening to what I said. There's an actual link to a working MVP. And so you got to give credit to that. Literally, this link takes you to a free viewable version of the program Notion, where you can see a working mock-up of a potential, just a mock-up, but a working mock-up of a potential networking hub. Yeah, let me see if I can cut and paste out the MVP real quick. Probably will end up crashing stuff. Stand by. Come on, render. I should be able to cut and paste the link though. And it should still work. I haven't tested it today, but it worked when I looked at it. So if you want to check out the mock-up, it's not very deep. So there you go. This is, well, the proposal is of an MVP. The link literally brings you to a mock-up page. But still super impressive, right? And this person was listening to me when I preach show, don't tell. They said, hey, they heard that and they said, let me just show you what I think we should do. So this gets a gold star for giving us a viable proposal for what a working version of a community could look like. So now you're going to wonder, well, why is it only in the 7 to 10 bucket? And that's fair. I'll get there. So then the rest of this goes on to tell you about it being a Notion-powered dashboard that facilitates mentor-mentee selection, the design advantages. It explains a little bit about what is Notion, talks about how to match people, cost. It gives me the cost chart. It's not showing up well here, but this chart was fine in the original document. Talks about what we'd need to pay in order to use Notion as a tool, which is affordable. Talks about how to encourage underrepresented groups and a little bit about global participation. So why did I not choose to put this one in the top 10? Well, much like my critique of the game jam idea, this is really a tool proposal. It talks very little about really solving some of the other questions of mentor network design. How do we select mentors? How do we match people? How do we train people? A couple of those things are mentioned. So I don't, by the way, none of you have to agree with me about where I rank things. The rules said I would choose. And number two, just because something didn't win doesn't mean it's not good. It just wasn't best in my estimation. But this ended up striking me more as a super valuable explaining of how this tool works. And by the way, a couple other proposals end up mentioning Notion as a tool. I think it's highly likely we will investigate using Notion. And Bansura says it looks like a sales pitch. There's a fine line between a sales pitch and a good proposal. But anyway, if there's any other comments on this, I'd love to hear them, see them in chat, because this is good. This is really good. And I see people saying 6 and up must be amazing. You know, this is the deepest mock-up. Like, this is where this shines. Is this person nailed it, right? Donham nailed it right here. Let me just show you. Where it falls short is coverage. One of the things I thought about is this a complete proposal? And so as we get into the winners, you'll find that they may not be as impressive on any one aspect, but they are much more holistic In other words, if I had to take just a single proposal and do everything the way it said, which I judged on which proposal could I just take off the shelf and maybe write that person back and say, okay, you proposed it. Here's a budget. Go build it. Who would I trust to do that? All right. Close that. Close that. So now we're going to go to what I call the honorable mentions. This is the bucket 6 through 10. Sorry, 4 through 6. We did 7 through 10. This is 4 through 6. And so again, they are in no particular order. They are just in that blob. I didn't discriminate, but you'll see that they look more like proposals. Those 4 in the 7 through 10 were all great, but I think generally they were one-dimensional. One was highly focused on a tool, one highly focused on a user flow, one highly focused on events. They were very deep and narrow, which gave us great information as a community, but were not holistic. All right. Yeah, we'll have to understand the pricing on Notion more to see if we could really use it. I don't know if that's possible, if it would be affordable. Okay, let's jump in. We'll get into the people who are in the money in a minute, but here's the next person, the next proposal. This one is from, again, as I said, you can pick Ali, Vatrini18 on Discord, or Abid FIFA on Twitch. So I love this proposal in a few ways, and you'll see why. First, he opens by citing what is it he's trying to answer, like reviewing what is the point of this proposal. So here's some of the findings I shared about the data, the objective, and then this is literally a cut and paste, but why would you do a cut and paste? It's showing that you understand the question you're trying to address. So it's restating the question and saying, look, I know what I'm trying to solve. Then I thought this was really funny. Ali basically says, I don't know anything about mentoring. I don't have that experience. So I'm going to look at this only as a mentee. Now, what I liked about looking at it, I liked the fact that Ali was honest about his expertise. And he said, look, I'm going to focus on what I know. And then talks about healthy gamer. But what I like here, there's a lot of words, by the way. So there's a lot of writing. This one does. Visually, there's nothing unusual about this. It's well structured, but it's written as a document. So I included this also to show what you could do in a long form written document. Here in proposition, my vision for the program is one where various areas of mentoring are broken down into smaller categories. The big takeaway idea from this I think we'll use is right here. I propose the ideas of specialized mentors. So while I think we will set up in our network the ability for you to have a mentor, to meet a mentor or be a mentor who helps someone holistically with their career, I think there's real value to letting some people be surgeons and letting that be part of the network, where when I need a resume, I go to Maximus. When I need advice on managing people, I go to Hephaestus. When I need advice on, I don't know, something else that someone else in the community is an expert on, we could use Danny. I don't think she's here, but when I need advice on how to navigate topics around diversity, I go to her because she's the diversity Jedi. It's a good idea. And so this one is getting credit from me for having come up with what I think is a good idea. And there's a point here. A proposal doesn't have to be the most beautiful if it has the best ideas. All right. So something, by the way, I should share that's going to go in our design. Several people proposed the importance of mentor-mentee dating. There was even one proposal that didn't make the top 10 and isn't getting reviewed here called mentor dating. And the idea being that fit matters. And so having a structure where a mentor and mentee can meet a couple times and see if it clicks and then move on if it doesn't is probably something we need to build in. We also know from feedback I got from Amazon and their mentor program, there's a role for people who just want to ask a mentor. They don't want a long-term relationship necessarily with a given mentor. They want to ask that person a couple of questions and then move on. Well, in this case, I think what we learned from this is having both of those options matters. And it isn't only this proposal that mentions it, but I want to say when we finish the design overall, that's probably an element of it. Mentor Tinder, swipe right, swipe left. You guys, I don't know. I get it. Okay. I also see, by the way, in chat, somebody says it takes a village to raise a mentee. I don't think I put it in the top 10, but there was a proposal. I want to make sure it's not. Well, if I spoil one of the ones in the next couple, it's okay. There was a proposal to do like group mentoring. So more on the event idea, more like a Y Combinator event where a person gets assigned 4 or 5 mentors who see them through some progression. And it's more like being admitted to an incubator. And I think that's interesting again. I didn't choose it because it doesn't strike me as a mentor network in the classic design, but I think it's an interesting idea for a type of event we could do. All right, let's see what else we got here. Lots of text. I did read all this. We're not going to read it here online. This says we should train mentees or set at least expectations. And then here, the other reason I put this in the bucket 4 to 6, this proposal does something no one else really did. It literally goes back to each of the design goals and says, okay, you gave us a design goal. Mentorship takes precedence over peer groups. Great. Here's how I answered that. We want to work globally and with women and in different disciplines. Here's how I address that. We want to make sure we're safe. Here's how I address that. And so if you want to write a good proposal, this proposal got into the 4 to 6 bucket, even though the person says, I don't know this much about this, I'm making it up, because it's complete. It's holistic. And then they cite their concerns, the stuff they haven't figured out. And I love this. They figure out at the end, look, I really have proposed one idea. The whole proposal, they correctly sum up, is right here. If you can't read it, it says, truth be told, I'm not sure how I've written so much when it can essentially be summarized into one simple idea. Split the responsibilities of a mentor into smaller groups, allowing mentors to specialize in specific areas and enabling mentees to have the opportunity to engage with multiple mentors across these categories. This is a good idea. And they wrote a lot. This is not uncommon. You write a lot and then you realize like, oh, there's one core idea. I streamed on Twitch for a year before I got the magic loop down to what it is. I did resume reviews on Twitch for almost 2 years before a few weeks ago I realized, all I need to tell people is show, not tell. Show me what you've done. Don't tell me about it in your own words. Demonstrate it with facts. Okay, done. Bottom line is, this is a good, complete proposal with a good idea in it, and so it's in the bucket 4 to 6. The thing you should take away if you want to have winning proposals, this proposal, in terms of completeness and structure, with some of the graphics and beauty of the others, would have been top 3. All right. There we go. All right. Who's next? We'll go pull one up real quick. So also in the 4 to 6 bucket, just looking at this before I start talking. Okay. This is actually the one I was just talking about. I couldn't remember. I did put it in the top. So this is by Drew B. Great opening, states his assumptions. These are his design assumptions about a network. And I think that's smart. No one wants to be committed to a formal program forever. I agree. And something that came up several times is mentor-mentee commitments should be time-bound so that people can get out of them if they want. So we will probably go for 3-month, something like 3-month cycles where you can always re-up with the same mentor if the two of you love each other, but you don't have to. And people can escape and say, I want to move on, right? I want to see other people. And then these are his assumptions, though I like that. He talks about the benefits for mentees. But where this falls a little short is he has an idea in his head, which I called like a Y Combinator or an incubator structure, that he kind of backs into without ever actually explaining it, without giving the idea. You just get a bunch of bullets that say, well, the structure will be a short-term formal mentorship, a limited number of mentees in each cycle or cohort, separating onboarding. And this is the unusual idea, a 4 to 5 to 1 ratio of mentors to mentees. So you need a lot more mentors than mentees in this. And that's why I said it's like an incubator. It's almost a different thing than a mentor network. He goes on to talk about how it works, that there's a graduation day, so it's done in cycles, explains why 4 or 5 to 1, and then talks a lot about how to scale. Phase 1, which I like. Like, okay, I have this unusual structure. It needs a lot of mentors. How do we scale up? What do we do there? How do we handle inclusivity? How do we handle mentor matching? How do we handle onboarding? And then there's a phase 2. How do we get a little bigger? How do we go get the mentors? And then there's a phase 3. Sorry, I keep looking off because I have a second screen here. I'll try and stay focused on y'all. But this proposal, again, is not visually beautiful. There's really it's well written. What I like about it is it's comprehensive and it demonstrates the idea of proposing phases, that you want to try something. And I think an idea that was in this and one other that got me a lot of credit is it talks about the importance of running a pilot. What we probably should do when we build our own network is start small. Yeah, here's where it says it. This is actually okay because we'll be learning each time and making small iterations. So we just ran a design contest to figure out how to design a mentor program. We don't have any actual experience doing that yet. So this points out we probably should have essentially a beta phase. Just like software, just like a game, we should have an in-house alpha and a closed beta and an open beta before a general release so that we scale up slowly. So I think that's right. And yeah, somebody here says, Agile, let's go. Thank you, by the way, all the people in chat. And I see many of the creators are here. Many of the people who put in proposals, not surprisingly. I want to thank you again for all the time all of you took. And every one of you, I've taken some idea away from what you've proposed. I'm not sure I will go with this incubator approach that Drewby proposes, but the idea of iterating, agile style, iterate and learn, I think is golden. Now, should I have needed somebody to propose that to see that we should apply that to this? Maybe not, but I did. And so this proposal gets credit because they had another really good idea. So if every proposal gives us one or two really good ideas, we end up in such a better place. There's a lesson for everybody here, by the way. I could have designed a mentor network all on my own, or by interacting with you all in chat here, or by guessing. By running this contest, about 20 people, 15 proposals, some of them by multiple people, gave me their thoughts. There's no way I'm as smart, clever, or informed as all those people. And we haven't even gotten to the best proposals yet. All right. Here we go. Let's go to the last one in the bucket 4 to 6. Now, this one's funny. I don't know if he's here. This is written by Tommaso, who helps us edit some of our videos and does some other good work for the community. But it's really funny because he tells me he wrote it all on his phone. So when you see the length of this and you start thinking about putting this whole proposal together on his phone because he was away from his house and the deadline was coming, I guess A, that's terrible planning, but B, wow, it's dedication. All right. So he's got it broken into steps. First, understand your customers. So this is Amazon working backwards, right? What do the customers need? And here is a second person who brings up this idea of we should iterate. We need to identify the objectives with the most interest and launch a restricted pilot. This is the last of the 4 to 6 bucket. Yeah, this is crazy. All right. And Tommaso, I see you're here. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for the proposal. When I got it from you and you told me you'd done a lot of it on your phone, I'm like, well, this one's going to end up in the bottom. So I was really happy to see that there was enough quality that it ends up in the 4 to 6 honorable mention bucket. So he has this idea here of questionnaire. And so a couple people gave me lists of questions to ask mentors and mentees. And I think when we composite all of those, put them all together and deduplicate them, we'll have a good idea of what information we should try to get from mentors and mentees. And then he did some work looking at the frameworks of learning and said, look, there are basically 4 ways you could learn through a platform: courses, webinars, mentorship, sessions for one-off questions, and long-term mentorship, which he then goes on to define. So how does he define a course, a webinar or live stream, one-on-one for one-offs, long-term mentorship? And then he asked a really good question, which is, so by the way, again, the case of including data, he's gone and found out that 76% of people think a mentor would help their career, but only 35% have a mentor. So good showing demand. Always try and support. If you want to pitch something to someone, if you want to propose something, unless you are the God-given expert in that field and broadly acknowledged as the expert, it's much better to cite some data to support your case. Because the more you can refer to third-party sources, the more trust you borrow from those sources of, hey, look, I'm smart, I know about this stuff, and what I'm saying is aligned with that. So then when I do have to propose something and say, I think we should do this, I've built up an aura of being grounded in fact as opposed to opinion. In any case, he says, look, here's where I would start: courses and one-off questions. The big idea in this that got it into the top buckets for me is right here. he points out we should have an FAQ, or I should do short videos. Doesn't say this, but I inferred it. That answer the common questions on any topic. So, stupid example, resume mentorship. We should be able to have any mentor say, well, have you watched Ethan's resume video? It's over here. Have you read the FAQ on resumes? Have you read the FAQ on salary negotiation? Yes, I am the salary negotiation expert. I put myself forth as I work in HR. I can tell you how to negotiate with me, and I'm going to be a hotly demanded mentor. But to save time, you need to watch the negotiation video and read the FAQ so that I'm only answering questions specific to your circumstance. I'm not answering completely generic questions. This is a good idea for scale, and it's the best idea, in my opinion, besides iteration in this proposal. And it's something I think we'll do. The other thing I think is cool about it is that body of knowledge, the community can grow it over time. And so whether you think of it as a Wikipedia for us or some other technical structure, we can build out a set of ways to capture the base knowledge so that you can get your basic mentorship before taking up human time. And this should allow us to scale. Yeah, content, growth, depth, and breadth. Does he really have a negotiation video? Yes, there really is. I've talked about salary negotiation before, for sure. Comp negotiation. Someone awesome is usually good at this. Maybe he can root it out of the YouTube archives. If not, I will redo that video and we will post it, but I think it exists. It may not be a whole video. It may be a section of one on getting a job, but I know I've talked about it before. Because I covered the stat, I remember, I'll just share real quick. It's a distraction, but that's okay. 70% of people at work in a job have never asked for any sort of raise. But 70% of those who do ask get something. They may not get what they ask for, but they get something. So Awesome posted the video link. There you go. Insider secrets, negotiating salary and compensation. Boom. Now, I could probably do an even better job of that if we went and said, this is what we'll do as we build this network. As you, the team, you, the community, work with me and say, we're thin on how to get a raise. Great. I will go out and find an HR person who negotiates against you. I'll get a recruiter whose job it is to get you to take less, or an HR person whose job it is to keep compensation controlled across a company and pay people appropriately, and bring them in and have them explain, well, these are the times when I give a raise. This is how you convince me. That would be a great show. And we can do that topic by topic because, the HR person, they don't mind paying you for value. What we would have them do is say, this is how you demonstrate enough value. And I won't go into it, by the way, but I'm working with someone who I coach right now. First, he does well. Okay, he's a high-level professional. He pays me for hourly coaching, so that already tells you he's investing in himself. And he's going to get a big comp change, right? Big, 50%. His comp is going up. He has two competing offers. His comp in one goes up by 50% and in the other goes up by 60%. Okay, this stuff is possible in the current market. Not for everybody, not everybody's circumstances. I know some of you just need a job, period. But I want to say, this stuff is possible very much. So, moving on. Pentaquant, thank you. A lot of our old timers are hitting the 1 year mark on subs. Some of them are a little longer, some not quite, but I'd love to have you here. Okay. Tommaso also talks about a credit system. So this is how you get credits. This is how you use them. So again, when we talked about, somebody said, well, we shouldn't pay mentors. People who put in work, maybe we wouldn't do through money, by the way, or maybe we would. But should have first dibs on the benefits. I think that's reasonable. Okay. There's some more ideas. The other big thing, this proposal, I really like. He did the work to say, look, here's a bunch of different platforms you might use. Someone said Notion may be too expensive, so maybe we would work with any of these. So we are going to have to figure out what is the right supporting technology for this community to make it work well. Okay, so I had thought about going out on a YouTube and trying to find a drum roll. But we have now been through 7 to 10 and 4 to 6, and we're right on time. I thought that would take about an hour. Now we're going to go a little more in depth on third place, second place, and first place. So, drum roll, please. Not really. Let's go get... where is it? There we go. Third place. And I wrestled with these. Hopefully, if you're in the top 3, you're happy you're there. If you're not number 1, you're not suicidally sad. I did my best to pick what is most helpful to me and most completely address the concerns. So, coming in at number 3, waiting for this to load, stand by. I'm not going to, well, let me just show this and talk about it. So number 3 comes to us from UK Law. It's a nickname for someone who wanted their identity anonymous, but based in the UK, planning on law. Number 3, in the money, I will send you $200 by PayPal or as an Amazon gift certificate. And I'm not blowing this up to full screen because I think sometimes there are things down here in the speaker notes. There may not be on this proposal, but there are on some others. So let's go through it. First, obviously visually attractive as a PowerPoint. So background. Did some research, right? This person did the research to say, look, there's plenty of mentorship networks. Let me see if I do blow this up. Hang on. I'll try and do this big. Come on. There we go. There are plenty of mentorship networks that exist that might fit what you're envisioning. Here are the issues. They're underutilized. They aren't comprehensive enough. They aren't sustainable or scalable. Their membership or audience isn't sufficiently vetted. So here's someone who opens and said, I did research and deep research. Let me show you. Here's 4 networks they went and found and looked at. The Crew, Dreamers and Doers, Digital Women Leaders, Society of Freelance Journalists. And they linked them. So when I post this over in Discord, you can go check out some of these communities and see what they really do well. And so for these, this is what I talk about with value and with bringing in authority. So right now, if you think about it, this person has done a good job of convincing me and us, hey, I know what I'm talking about. I've thought about your problem, and here's some of the things I've found and studied that support my claims of the problems with current mentor networks. So then, how can we improve on these models? We can make mentorship more affordable. Some of these places that have problems charge $500 to $1,000 a year. We can combine peer mentorship. We can create a community. We can have mentees pay it forward. We can encourage more active participation. UK law points out that only 30 or so of the 1,000 people signed up for Society of something journalists, I've forgotten it already, freelance journalists, actually participate. These are some things we can improve. Okay, thank you. How? Here are some tools, existing and proposed. So consider using Slack. Here's how you could use Calendly to schedule one-on-ones. You could use Dropbox, etc. Notion is mentioned here. You could create a website, and you can use social media. And here's some of the ways you can start improving on these problems. Remember, I asked this question. How exactly will it work? Okay. Prospective members can read about the community on our website. If they're interested, they fill out an application. They have a code of conduct about respecting, participating, and giving back, which we will do something like this. Even if it's super simple, we will set expectation with people and say, hey, if you're part of this community, to the degree you're able, we'd like you to give back. You get to define how to, at a minimum, you get to define how to do that, but don't just take, also give. And so we'll form a community that way. And then obviously my picture covers a bit of the slide. You don't really need it. You can see it later in Discord. But in the Slack community, they'll find a link to the Mentor database. Now, I think Slack is a paid tool, but I know some people at Slack, maybe we could use it free. Maybe we just use Discord instead. And yeah, somebody says a charter. It does look really clean. So this one is in the top 3, in part on visuals. Look, many of the other people who made proposals worked just as hard, maybe, as UK law. It's just like wearing a clean shirt to an interview. If you're pitching something or proposing it to someone, having it be attractive and easy to read, whether it should or not, gives it authority and gravitas, because we're trained on the idea that good ideas come packaged in pretty presentations. Whether or not that should be true, that's how society is trained. And so if someone drives up to your house in a shitty car, you think differently of them than if they drive up in a nice car. Should that matter? Is the person inside inherently worth more or less because of what car they drive? But someone who has a dented car is considered to be perhaps sloppy and careless. Might not be fair. They might be incredibly careful. Someone hit them. But that's not how people think. And we all do this to some degree. Appearance matters. All right. Moving on. What else? So here's another list of thoughts. They'll be able to sign up for long-lasting mentorship matches. After 2 months of mentorship, they can become a mentor. Maybe we'll do it this way. Maybe we won't. But this is a list of ideas that UK law has on how this should work. And then she addresses accessibility, inclusivity, diversity, and community. When they join the network, mentors will be asked to provide some personal information. This is how this is all addressed with affinity groups. I'm not sure. I personally think affinity groups is the right way, but I'm not state of the art here, and I'll have to get some advice on that. The point is, the proposal covers all the things I asked about. Sustainability, scaling, and paying it forward. Get regular feedback. It's one thing I haven't talked about yet. There will be a feedback mechanism where mentors and mentees can somehow give feedback on each other. It's just a way to make sure that we don't have bad actors in the community. The best suggestion I got on this, it may not have appeared in one of the presentations we've covered, is to make it really simple and use a net presenter score or net promoter score, NPS. Single question. Would love to work with this mentor again, would recommend this mentor to others, would recommend this mentee to others. A single number. And with enough ratings, you get a sense of, oh, this person is a great mentor, very high net promotion score. This person is a great mentee. They put the effort in. They're respectful of my time. They bring good questions. Maybe we'll do that. We'll definitely have some sort of feedback mechanism. This idea here in the bottom corner of a nudge, basically poke people. Can we automate keeping people active? Yep. And somebody says here in chat, yeah, a couple things about, all right. So in chat, Go Getter always says a few good things here about rating both ways. Pitch for new business should be shortened to the point. So there's investment. What kind of money is this going to take? What kind of time? So again, it's complete. This pitch, this proposal is very complete. And then there's like a catch-all bucket. Further considerations for food and thought. Mechanisms can be reused. Make the commitment worthwhile. Set up systems. I think one of the most interesting points here, let me see. I can't easily hide that, so I'm not gonna. The bottom says you can't have everything. You have to focus on a specific goal and inspire people to specific actions. What's being said here is, do we need to focus in some way to make sure that we don't try and have our mentor community be all things to all people? And that's a valuable thought we haven't talked about very much. Thanks so much for your time. Please don't hesitate. So this is a very complete, visually attractive proposal. Has some good ideas in it. I think where this shines is research. It shines up here in the beginning by establishing credibility straight up by saying, here's some problems, here's some research I did, and then goes into what do we do. I think where it's not quite as good, it's not as specific. There's more work to be done to turn this into a result. There's a lot of, here are a ton of tools you could consider. Here's a structure, so there is some. This proposal is not easy. This is like, hey, eat the whole elephant at once. So if I had to say why I ended up putting this in third, this one is not easy to get started on. Somebody says hard to follow what we're trying to achieve. It's a shotgun of great information founded in decent research. I end up being like, oh my God, how do I start? And do I have to do all of this? And do I need to set up Slack or Teams or Google Hangouts and Calendly? And do I need Dropbox and Notion and Airtable? What's that? And a website? It becomes overwhelming. So this is a great late stage design. I think it's good. I'm just giving you why I didn't put it in first. Because I said I want to give feedback on what's good and how to make good proposal, also bad. This one, someone earlier, it may still be here, had a proposal that had phases. I think it may have been Drewby or whatever. Had the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. I wish this one had 3 slides: starter phase, least commitment, next phase, next phase. Like, this would move up if it had clear phasing of how to start. So sweet. Congratulations. 3rd place. All right. I'm gonna kill that. We're going to go to number 2. Who's ready? I still have coffee, so this must be going well. Yeah, the bronze winner. You get to stand on the podium, but we don't play your national anthem yet. All right. Okay, this is 2nd place. 2nd place, here I want to show, is Frasbo. And from Frasbo, I want to show that while visual matters, you do not need to be colorful or slideware to be really good. This proposal, I don't think has any pictures in it. I might be wrong if I scroll down. But it's essentially flat, black and white narrative text. However, it is well written and well structured and has a lot of good data in it. And so I want to point out that it's not all visual. But this is almost Amazon narrative style. I think this is 5 pages, if I recall. Let's see. Oh, there are visuals in it. I'm wrong. But I think it's quite comprehensive. And it covers a lot of different points. So I'm not going to read you 5 pages because this is about the presentation, but let's look at the key elements. First, they call out that the general platform hub should have 2 sides, a mentee hub and a mentor hub. So you got mentees and mentors. Those are our 2 customers. Several people have pointed that out. The second thing is they've done a mock-up of what a mentorship network could look like. This is pretty advanced. If we could build all this, it'd be great. If we can use a tool like Notion or something else to get a lot of it for free, that would be even better. But they have a clear idea of what they think it should look like. Similarly, they have the same thing for what they think is important for a mentor to be able to do. And man, wouldn't this be great to have? It's fun to just envision it. Then they do talk about the different software. So Discord for communication. By the way, it's likely we'll use that at least at first. Notion for the hub platform homes. I said several people had mentioned Notion. And then what's the potential to do a custom build? Well, that's not going to happen ultimately. It might happen later, but it's not going to happen in the beginning. That said, it's always great to know, well, you could start with some things off the shelf and then add to them. Then they talk about Frasbo does one of the best jobs of breaking down the roles. Say, okay, well, there's coaches, there's mentor supervisors, there's mentors, there's helpers who are doing other tasks for the community. And I would say this is a key idea. This is a volunteer-supported community. We're going to need volunteers who aren't necessarily doing mentee or mentor work, but are contributing as volunteers to other things, whether that's moderation or anything else we need. Maintain the hub, checking for correct info, no bugs, no spam. And then there's some drawings of how these people relate to each other. So I honestly, to Frasbo, when you see this, or if you're here, I found this diagram a little bit confusing. I decided I kind of figured it out, but I would just say in some cases, diagrams, if they're not clear, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but a picture of 1,000 confusing words is not helpful. Yeah. So, Tinphobius asked why we can't do a custom build out of volunteers in chat. Basically, herding together a bunch of volunteers to do a custom build is very hard. There are 2 great volunteers who helped put my simple EthanEvans.com website together. They were both great. It took a lot of work to get it done. Coordination, frustration, time zones, etc. Yeah, we'll probably try and start with tools. In any case, they then go on to talk about how do you train and build the mentors? What's the use of group closed calls? I do think there's some utility for small groups. I think popular mentors can't always scale, but you can get a lot from listening to other people's concerns. And it turns out your peers can advise you as well as your mentor a lot. Mentors like me have the problem that we think with an executive mindset, and sometimes our advice is well-intended but impractical in the trenches. So small groups have value because the people beside you can say, well, here's what Ethan means that you can actually do. Yeah. Yep, I get open source vision. Maybe we'll go there. This proposal talks a lot about the resources that already exist. So we went over this earlier, but having an archive of things that mentors and mentees can say, watch together and discuss. That way they don't have to come up with their own topic all the time. They can say, hey, Ethan often recommends the Simon Sinek video, Start With Why. or he recommends the short Harvard Business Review article, Manage Your Energy, Not Your Time. Let's talk about how you're managing your focus at work. Let's both read that real quick before our next meeting, or you come having read it with your questions. It gives a way to deepen mentorship and make it stronger without it all relying on the two people just inventing what they need to talk about. This proposal then goes on. This was the person who said, maybe we just use Net Promoter Score. This is a great idea and puts the proposal in the top two because it's simple. Rather than going with complex or invasive ratings, some other people recommend that we ask mentors or mentees a whole range of questions and got into some sensitive stuff. This is really easy. Would I work with this person again? How likely am I to recommend them? Simple one question encapsulates everything. And then here they come and say, hey, if it gets overcrowded, you could use a token system, which is the same as what we talked about with credits, etc. Andrino, you are free to hate NPS. It's really simple. It has to be applied right. Yes, you're not going to recommend recruitment software to your friends and family. That's a terrible phrasing of the question. But nobody likes everything. So remember, I'm not in the business of pleasing everyone. If Seth Godin and others, we also talk about Kevin, what's his name, from 1,000 True Fans. Our network is a huge success if 1% of global professionals or global workers use it. We're friggin' gigantic, right? That would be, I don't know, a couple tens of millions of people. So if we're the right solution for 1% of people, suddenly we've built something unbelievable. So we don't have to please everyone. It's got to be the right. It's more important. Emmett Shear at Twitch taught me this. It's much more important that a few people, narrow segment, love your product than a lot of people kind of like it. Broad, flat, it's okay. Not useful. Set of fanatics who think it's fucking amazing. Another set of people who think it's awful and hate the air you breathe and think you're a waste of skin. Fine. No worries. You don't have to be liked by everyone. Okay, if you want to sell like cereal, maybe being broad is okay. But in something like this, deeply committed, much better. All right. So that's number 2. Congratulations, Frasbo. Well done writing a narrative, complete thoughts, well organized, well written, clean. Why didn't it win? Good question. I should go back to it real quick and cover that since this is teaching about winning proposals. Why did I not select this in the end? Well, number 1, because I think number 1 beat you. So less than flaws in what you had. You'll see number 1 here in a minute. I think it's a really great proposal. Number 2, a little bit how to bite this off and get started. There's a lot written in here. Again, you have to be careful not to make things overwhelming. Number 3, I commented, honestly, I tried and I can kind of guess, but I'm not sure what the hell this diagram means. And then it's a lot of sections without a pull it all together conclusion and a plan. So I felt like you had really good ideas. I couldn't just hand this project over to you and say, great, here's $10,000, make it so. Because I'm not sure what the plan is. It's more like lots of good input for me. So well done. Fantastic. Congratulations. And Frasbo, I'm glad you had fun creating it. You did a good job. Okay. So we have 1 to go. And assuming the people are watching, I would figure they know it's going to be hard not to guess if you're number 1. So congratulations. You probably know who you are. This one, get the display going. Okay, that's fine. Da, 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 da. Okay. So this one I'm going to have to show small because there's a lot in the notes at the bottom. But this is by two people, Caitlin and Stephanie, who it's a little small to see, but in, I think it's Discord, they go by Davari and Basi. I don't know how to pronounce Stephanie's handle there, B-A-S-C-E. So if Stephanie is here, you can give us phonetics. But this is visually stunning. Congratulations, you're number one. I want to say, by the way, that you came in. This is one of the first proposals I received. So this came in within maybe 3 days of when the contest started. Doesn't mean that other people didn't do good jobs. I think Frasbo came in just under the wire, for example. But sometimes just banging it out and doing a good job can win. All right. So here we go. Let's go to the goals. All right. I've decided I'm going to skip showing the notes because I want this to be big enough for everyone to see it before we share it out. So let's just go ahead and go into presentation mode. What you need to know, though, is there are not only slides, there are notes on every slide. And so there's more information on each one. But here they outline their goal: to give everyone the tool they need to be successful in their careers by providing free quality career guidance to those who don't have easy access to mentorship. They then have a what, a who, a how, a where. Like, they break this down. And so this shows, like the other proposal where someone restated the goals, this shows they understand the problem they're addressing and they plan, important, to address it holistically. Now, next. Why participate? They look at everyone's motivation. What's my motivation as a coach? What are the mentors' motivation as service providers? The mentees as the customers, peer-to-peer, everyone. What do people who are not even being mentored get out of it? This is really good thought. Thinking about, hey, they get networking opportunities. They can be self-guided. They have no restrictions. It's quick advice from a varied audience. And I love, so tasteful, to put in a quote, which, by the way, is a great quote I had not heard. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And by Winston Churchill, who, my goodness, what a more august figure. All right, so well done so far, killing it. So then we get into the specifics. And by the way, the display artifacts you're seeing up here in the top with the word wrap is a side effect of this is PowerPoint being redisplayed through Google Slides. It looks even better as PowerPoint. But they call out that there are 3 different types, in their opinion, of mentorship we can do. The traditional one-on-one, the mentoring circle, which is small group mentorship, peer-to-peer with a guide, and then potential mixed approaches. And they talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each. Again, the formatting error here is Google. Use of Google Slides to show this. But they diagram the ideas of circles, etc. Now, since we're critiquing things, I might argue this is overkill. Like, you describe circles and individual mentees. I'm not sure this slide adds a lot. There may be some stuff in the notes, but I would say overall, each slide so far has been packed with value and data. This one feels a little like padding, a little bit like maybe overkill. So that's a small thing, not a huge issue. I just feel like I should be fair and balanced and try and give people all the data. All right, let's keep going. This is probably, we skipped by one. I got to go back. This one. This is probably the winning slide in it. So they really thought through the process of What happens first? Mentors volunteer. What happens second? The mentee signs up. What happens third? How are they matched? First session and setup, and then the cycle. Couple small critiques here, but this is a great, if you ask the question of all the proposals we've seen, what leads you to believe you could just turn over the program to one of the people making a proposal and say, okay, yes, build me what you've described? This slide, to me, brings together, it's got enough detail, but enough process flow. Now, I would say again, by the way of minor criticism, it spends a lot of time getting to the first session and setup, and then kind of winds up the ongoing operation and long-term of the community into a single thin slice on cycle. But I'm nitpicking at this point to give the people who put in the work, Caitlin and Stephanie, to give them feedback on it. They've won. How could they be even better? I might balance this to go a little more in depth on the long term. You've done a great job, though, setting this up. And then obviously they did a ton of visual work. So thanks for the sub, new collie. All right. So they keep rocking it. Here they talk about how they envision mentor and mentee snapshots on a website or with another tool. I think in their notes they might have mentioned Notion as well, but this is very elaborate. How would we build a simple version of this? A good question. But anyway, they have two personas. Sally helps a lot. Joe needs help. And then they go into, hey, how do we match up? These are the goals I have. These are the things I do. I'll go backwards for a minute and say in the bottom left, they have this idea of this is how available I am. I'm available to do 4 one-on-one mentorships. I have a mentorship circle you can join, etc. My conclusion on this, by the way, is the poor person's way of starting this is people have a LinkedIn. Okay, you can, the easiest way to shortcut having to build this mentor profile is Sally points herself, in some simpler interface. Sally says, here's my LinkedIn. And so you can learn about me. And then here's when I'm available. And we only need 2 lines. LinkedIn availability. It's not quite as anonymous, but this system doesn't really work anonymously. And your LinkedIn is public anyway. Okay. We'll keep going. They also talk about matching up the mentee preferences, who I want to mentor. They can look at your resume, which again would be LinkedIn. I think no one mentioned that, by the way. I was fairly surprised. LinkedIn is thinly mentioned as a tool. And as much as I talk about it, we don't want people to have to recreate information, and they should have a good LinkedIn profile anyway if they're part of this community. So let's use LinkedIn. So when we do the final design, for technology, a big part of it is going to be links out to LinkedIn. Sweet. Tools. They talk about different tools you can use. So LinkedIn isn't mentioned here, but LinkedIn is where professionals hang out. I would call that a miss. They talk about website, portfolio, and collaboration platforms, feedback tools. Somebody said earlier, I guess it was Drino, didn't like NPS. Well, NPS, one number, is a hell of a lot easier than all of this feedback. This would be better. Okay, what's shown here would be better. But oh my God, a lot of work compared to, hey, would you strongly recommend, somewhat recommend, neither inclined or not, disrecommend. That's a super easy 5 box and you're done, or 10 box, right? This is harder. More value, but way harder. Okay. They talk about growth. What would it take? Where would the money come from? What would cost? What could people do voluntarily, including website creation? And then volunteer services, and what to do with extra money. what next steps to take. So there's a clear plan, define the needs of the community, create the mentorship approach, set up the tools, set up the program administration and volunteer system, investigate and mitigate risk, promote the program. Again, for a pitch, for a proposal, this slide is like, okay, let's just go turn this over to Caitlin and Stephanie, hire them and say, yes, please. We're at step 1. How long will it take you to get to step 6? Where do I sign? Like, it feels complete. And so for more information, contact us. So it's that easy. Again, I pointed out some places I don't think that proposal is perfect, but if you've stayed through this whole show and you've wanted to see what makes a good proposal end to end, let me drop out of full screen view real quick. And the reason I want to do that is to show for every one of these, let's see, for every slide they have, down at the bottom, they have extensive notes elaborating. And so that's great too, because there's more detail than fits on the slides. Let me they're the sales pitch. They get you involved. But then once you're like, okay, this is great. I want to know this. I want to know that. There's more detail available. So they've done a good job combining the visual of a pitch that stands on its own with additional detail that answers questions you may not have. So like I critiqued this slide and said, I'm not sure it adds a lot, but there's a bunch of notes here that might make it worth it, right? That give me more data. And so in every case, I feel like where things didn't fit into the pretty visual, they gave some extra data as well. So overall, this is a gold star. I would say, with no offense to any of the other 9 people we reviewed, this is clearly the winner. Everybody brought a lot of value. There's no proposal we've looked at that we didn't learn something from. But if you want to model how to make a good proposal from something, this is pretty holistic. It tries to cover all the topics. It's visually stunning, which in proposals does matter. It's not simply a form. So a ton of work. Somebody's an artist, which is a little bit of a cheat, right? Somebody's very good at PowerPoint here. But impressive, right? So I'll now go pay attention to chat, see what's there. If people have questions, we probably won't use the Q&A widget today. It's just too much trouble. I'll go see if anything was input there that I have to look at real quick. But if not, if you have questions, comments, whatever that you want to share on this, I think just chuck them in chat. What are our next steps? Now that we have a winner, let me drop back over to just me. Now that we have a winner, for the 3 winners, I will be in touch with you to figure out if you want gift cards or PayPal. I will get you your prizes. I appreciate very much everyone, all 15 people who submitted ideas. As a community, we have 2 next steps. Next step number 1, I'm going to share all the proposals as soon as I make sure they're properly anonymized. So we'll get those out into Discord so that everyone who wants to see them and dig through them and comment on them, we can have more of a discussion as a community. Because I'm building this for you. I don't need it. I want it, though. It sounds like fun. Second, we'll do a show next week where we talk about, okay, what are we really going to do? What are the things that I think when we pull all these together, when we pull the best ideas from all the proposals, what does that network look like? And importantly, what does phase 1 look like? Number 3, we may then need to do another contest at some point. There's a contest rattling around in my head of what should we train mentors on, or how should we. It's kind of the topics plus what do I need to do, or what do we need to do to make sure that people that we as a community put our name on as mentors, that we say, okay, this person is qualified to give advice that we trust in our community. What is our standard for that? And how do we get there in a lightweight way? Yeah. Sure, Terran Fear, I can be the gold standard, but the whole point of this is scale. So how do we make sure that when someone else steps up to mentor, that without having them need to be a clone of me, which takes away their individuality and is impractical anyway, they do good work. So those are our next steps. I haven't scheduled that show for next week. I need to do a little bit of scheduling, but that's what we're going to do next. I hope that all the presenters and others will continue. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, so let me complete that thought before I address chat. I hope that all the presenters continue to contribute, as well as the audience that didn't have a chance to present. I hope that you all continue to invest, because we're going to build something really cool here. Now, this question or this statement by Bansura Gaming, if we only rely on mentors who have my background, we don't have a network. And it's not because I'm that great. It's because most people in my role either haven't chosen to retire, they keep working, or when they retired, they chose to really retire and they're on a beach in Maui. And so we need to have people who have valid professional or other domain experience and want to share it and want to help, but we can't expect necessarily that they all have my exact background. So, if you rename this Twitch Builds a Company, this stream could blow up. Yeah. Thank you. We'll see. It's definitely a fun thought. Yeah, so we have to find, look, not everybody needs, let me even be stronger than that. I am not the best mentor for everyone here. One of the flaws I have as a mentor for some of you is I am too far removed from your experience. I've managed to help a lot of you who are new out of college. But my new out of college experiences are 25 years ago. And the last time I was entry level at a company was 20 years ago or more. And so I can't always I am best at coaching, and the people who pay me that I coach one-on-one offline are usually managers with 5 to 15 years of experience, because my best strength is helping someone who's managing a team of 10 or 20 or 30 get to managing a team of 100, and who's running a business of $10 million or $20 million get to 100 million or $500 million. I'm not. So that's just because I'm so distant from some of the other work. I'm also better, obviously talking about people who work in FANG or whatever. We have several people here who come from finance. I'm not a finance expert. And so for people, for example, I know that Awesome P, who's one of our mods, has gotten a lot of help and has a good relationship with NVA Hitch as a peer, I would say, in our community, and with Pentaquant as something of a mentor. And I can't provide that relationship for them because they have domain expertise I don't. So we need to scale beyond me. Shio248, it was a very style move for you to gift to Davari. That was nice. Good acknowledgement. So that's what we have to... are most people you coach paying through their employer given the hourly costs? No. Most people I coach, and it's a small number. Some people do have their employer pay, but most people are paying me out of their own hip pocket because they find that the value is there. And even though that's very expensive, it ends up, I can't guarantee anybody this. So for those of you who don't know, I charge, because my time is limited, to talk to someone privately for an hour. I normally charge $8.75. To talk to somebody week over week over week for a long time, I do a volume deal, but it's still many hundreds of dollars an hour. Why on earth would someone pay that? It's because basically let's take this person who I said is getting a 50% raise. That 50% raise is well over $100,000 per year. Their salary is going to go up. So they're already making a lot, and they're going to make a hell of a lot more. So it more than pays for it. Yes, they spend several $1,000s a year on my input. I would be so much better off working on commission and taking 10% of people's raises. If I work that way, I would make tons more money, but I'm not in it for money. It's nice to make money. It buys me toys. But it's fun. You know, I use it for entertainment essentially, but yeah, not seeking it for money. So the ROI is there though, right? The payback is there. Yeah. So all of you who are discussing this in chat, that's why I do these things here, right? That's why I talk. If you're not following me on LinkedIn, you should be. It's why I post short ideas on LinkedIn and also do Twitch, YouTube, podcast if you're listening or viewing this later, because I understand not everybody is in a position to pay $600-$800 an hour to get personalized advice. At the same time, there's 100 of you here right now. There'll be another couple hundred watching on YouTube, more listen to it on podcast. I don't have the hours to give all 400 or 500 listeners of each stream in its different forms individual advice. So I'm trying to strike that balance. The paid stuff is available for those who really need it. All right. Shio, you've done a good thing. It's very nice of you to gift subs to the two winners. And I hope both Davari and Baski stay. I hope you join the community and around some. So with that, my voice is going. I'm going to call it a day. We will be back next week. Join the Discord. Follow me on Twitter. That way you can know, follow this channel. That way you can know when we're going to be back and do the show on the actual design. And I will post things in Discord as soon as I can. It won't be until tonight at the earliest, probably sometime over the weekend. And otherwise, thanks to all 15 people who contributed. This has been a ton of fun. Congratulations to all the winners. I hope you got valuable feedback. And I'm going to let it go. We're going to head out for the weekend. Thank you all very much. And we're going to build a great community. I'm excited about what we're going to build. So, cheers, everyone.